All right, welcome to episode 55 of Life is Horror. Today's episode will be about part 3's because Terrifier 3 was released. Terrifier 3 was my most anticipated movie of the year. And did it disappoint? Is it the best in the series? Stick around, I'll tell you everything I think. But first, let's talk about some horror news. I don't have a whole lot to discuss, just one thing that was announced recently. Uh, I guess I should also announce what the other reviews are going to be, but you'll see it in the title anyways. Hashtag AMFAD and Deer Camp 86. Those are the other two reviews I'll be doing before I get to Terrifier 3. And then we'll end the video with my top 10 favorite part 3's of all time. It's a list that's a little different than the one I did like 4 years ago, where I did like ranking the 1's, 2's, and 3's, but I was like pitting 10 specific franchises against each other, going through the 1's and 2's. This is my top 10 3's overall, not limited to just 10 franchises and ranking them against each other. This is top 10 overall favorite part 3, so it's a little different than that ranking I did 4 years ago. So yeah, horror news. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I absolutely love, is joining Micah Monroe in the Hand That Rocks the Cradle remake, a remake of a 90s classic that I still have yet to see. I need to get on that. And also, it's going to be a 20th Century Studios project, and it's directed by Michelle Garza Cervera and written by Mika Bloomberg. Not familiar with those people, but yeah, I don't know anything about the original. Like I said, I've never seen it, but I don't even know what it's about. I think it's a thriller. And so yeah, I'll watch it just because of who's in it. I like both of those actresses, but I especially love Mary Elizabeth Winstead, so I'm sold. I'll watch anything with her in it. Now let's get into, I guess, the reviews. Let's just jump right into it. All right, so let's get into the first review here, and that will be not Terrifier 3. We'll save the best for last. Um, let's do hashtag AMFAD, hashtag all my friends are dead. Don't confuse this with the Polish New Year's Eve movie, All My Friends Are Dead, on Netflix, which I recommend. I really enjoyed that movie. It's a nice surprise horror comedy like this movie. But this was directed by Marcus Dunstan, who is responsible for the Feast movies, the Collector movies, and a lot of the Saw sequels. And he's very hit and miss with me. I love the first Feast, didn't really care for the sequels. Love the Collector. The collection was all right. He also did like that Pilgrim movie. I think that was like an Into the Dark movie, like a short film, kind of like 50 minutes long or something. That was all right. And then what else did he do? Oh yeah, he did Unhuman a couple years back, which was very mixed. A lot. It was a lot of people liked it or hated it, and I was on the. It was I was kind of like in the middle. I thought it was fine, like aesthetically. He's a very stylistic, like he's very stylized with like how he shoots and edits a lot of his movies as of late, like Unhuman and this movie, like the editing and certain sequences, they just are done in a visually interesting way. Um, and that's all good. I like the lighting. I like the look of this movie at times. The killer's mask is like an LED, like glowing like screen that can be whatever he or she wants it to be. Which we just saw in AI, that Blumhouse movie that just came out a couple months ago. But this was done better than that. But my issue with this movie, I was not a big fan of it. I don't think it's horrible. It's it seems to be mostly disliked than liked, just like Unhuman, maybe even more so. And my biggest problem was just the characters. They're characters that are very much today. What the people who chase likes and see what's trending, and they're fake, they're douchebags, and you just want to see them die. And it's got horrendous CGI blood on top of practical effects, like when people are getting like their throats slits. Like you see that there's practical blood that they used on set, but then you get these little moments here and there were just horrible. CGI blood will just start squirting out, and that always just takes me out of the movie. I hate when CGI blood is used. It's lazy. I don't like it. It looks horrible every single time, and you know the difference between CGI and practical, or at least you should. I think to me, there's a clear difference. Um, and there's this movie has a lot of twists and turns, mainly, all at the end, just one after another. And this movie even has like 3 post-credit scenes, which I thought was a little ridiculous, especially the last one, what they were trying to set up for the next movie. I was like, I don't care to see that movie. Uh, but there's all the twists, every single one of them. I think there's like 3. I called all 3 of them because just the way certain scenes are shot, certain lines of dialogue, and you got this whole like 7 deadly sins thing, which has been done quite a few times in horror, since 7 with Brad Pitt, and like just even like as soon as you meet one of these characters, like just the way the dialogue is and the way this character acts, like, yep, that person's probably doing this, and oh, yep, that character is the killer. Yep, this is going to be revealed about this, and it was all too predictable to me, and so that always hurts a movie when it's just too predictable. There's no surprises, but it's trying to be surprising. They're trying to hit you with not 1, not 2, but 3 twists back to back and shock you, but not a single one surprised me at all. Um, and yeah, it's just horrible characters, but not horrible acting, but just despicable human beings that you want to see die. The kills, besides the CGI blood, which I hated, there's some creativity to a couple of them, but nothing overly graphic or anything like Terrifier 3. It could have been better. It could have been a lot better, the kills. And some of them are kind of like Jigsaw like, but Marcus Dunstan, who wrote a lot of the Saw movies, he didn't write this one, but it's almost like the writers knew that they were going to get someone from the Saw universe to direct this, so they were like, oh, let's write some Saw stuff in here. Like one of the kill devices in this feels like you're watching a Saw movie, but with social media involved and live streaming and shit. It was silly. So I don't recommend this movie. I just I didn't go in with high hopes either, but I was just I did hope that I always hope to like a movie when I go in. I don't want to hate everything, and I like this director for the most part. I think he's done some really good stuff. Not all of it, but I was rooting for this movie, but at the same time, with everything I heard about it, I was like, it's probably not going to be good. And I don't think it's as bad as what I've been reading, but still, just I don't think it's worth your time. I don't think it's worth watching for free on Prime. That's where I found it. It's on Prime. If you're still interested in seeing it, that's where you can find it. But for me, it was very meh. So it's just 2.5 out of 5. I'm never gonna watch it again. So there you go. All my friends are dead. Next up is Deer Camp 86. I went into this one pretty much blind. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't read the synopsis. I just know it's set at deer camp in 1986, and it's a horror comedy set in Michigan, northern Michigan. Group of hunters going hunting for deer, and there's this killer on the loose who looks like you see on the poster there, kind of like the Predator in the recent Predator movie, Prey, with a skull of some animal on his face and a bone tomahawk, which was an interesting look for a slasher movie, but it's a supernatural slasher, and you get that's what it is pretty early on, so that's not spoiling anything. It's a supernatural killer, and it's a horror comedy, but it's very evenly blended. It's not so far into being goofy and over the top or very dark and serious. It's kind of like a nice blend of the two, but I kind of wish it would have been more silly. I would have liked it to dive a little further into the comedy. I enjoyed most of the characters, and I think that's what really helped this movie. For me, was just I enjoyed these characters, their interactions. They're just all guys who are constantly drinking beer and constantly making fun of each other, and that appealed to me. I was like, I like this group, but I could see some people not liking them because of that. They're like, oh, obnoxious or just drunken assholes. You might not like what they're saying to each other, and especially the one guy, Buck. Like he's the biggest like drunk asshole of them all, but he was kind of charming. I thought he was funny. And I already talked about the antagonist. The kills are not graphic. You get like 5 or 6 kills. There's like 6 characters in the movie. Most of them die, and none of them spectacularly. And so it's don't watch it for the kills. Just watch for the characters. That's the only way this movie will work for you, is if you like these people and you find them funny and amusing, like I did. Um, but outside of that, yeah, kills, whatever. But there was actually a reveal towards the end, and I'll just leave it at that. I didn't see it coming. Unlike the other movie I was just talking about, where every single twist, I was like, yep, called it, yep, obviously. And then, but this one, they threw in something towards the end. I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. And that's a nice surprise. So I like that. So with this movie, I would give it a 3 out of 5. It was all right. I liked it. But probably just a one and done for me. And so now let's move on to the next movie, Terrifier 3, my most anticipated movie of the year. And, Terrifier 2 was like my number one movie of 2022, so I expected this to possibly be my number one of this year, and definitely top 3. And did it disappoint? Is it as gory as everyone's been saying? Yeah, it's pretty damn violent, very violent, and the sound design makes it seem even extra gross. Sound design is pretty exaggerated at times, like even just like a simple cut to the arms, like you just hear the flesh squishing, and it's just even gross to listen to. And the cold opening is, it's designed to test the audience, like if you're gonna be able to stick around. Like if you find the opening too graphic or too sadistic, you're not gonna like the rest of the movie. But I love the opening scene. I'm still not quite sure. It's a movie that jumps around the timeline like back and forth a few times, from when the second movie left off to now 5 years later, to even like Sienna's childhood. I'm still not quite sure where this opening fits in with everything else. Like, when did he do this in the opening? These characters in the opening are not the characters we see throughout the movie. So when did that take place exactly? I don't know. But yeah, like a lot of improvements. Like it's 3 movies now. Like each one's getting better and better. Like I thought 2 stepped up everything, from story to characters. Actually had a story, unlike part 1, where the story was just, here's Art the Clown, watch him do his thing. In the second one, we actually had more characters, a badass final girl, more story there with these characters, not just Art the Clown, and it became supernatural. And this one continues the supernatural stuff, but not as much as part 2. It's not as fantastical, like glowing swords and stuff like that, and clown cafe dream sequences, and like this one still has those elements, but I don't think it's like, he definitely like trimmed it down this time, and went more for the tone of 1, but carrying some of that tone of 2 also. So it's kind of a blend of them, which I liked. Art the Clown in a Santa suit, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about that. Is that going to make it too silly? Like he said, he wanted this to be the darkest and scariest one. And I'm like, well, how are you going to do that when he's dressed like Santa? But with the white eye contacts and how sadistic these kills are, it's still pretty scary, even though he's wearing a Santa outfit, which could make some people laugh and not be able to take it so seriously. But it still worked. And he's not wearing it the entire movie. But I liked the Christmas atmosphere, definitely. Like just even the opening shots, like immediately I was like, Black Christmas. Like this, I'm getting Black Christmas vibes right away. Silent Night, Deadly Night, even Christmas Evil. There's a scene early on where I was like, this reminds me of a scene in that movie. And even Reanimator, one part. So just in pieces, like there's homages left and right to those 80s and 70s classics, which I appreciate as a huge horror fan and a fan of those movies. And the gore is the best. They stepped that up this time. The lighting and cinematography, pacing, like everything got better in this one. And Tinsley Studios did the effects this time, not Damien Leone. So that was the first. And this has some of the most realistic looking gore, especially in this series, but I would argue even in just slashers in general. Like it has some of the most realistic, gore sequences in it without getting into details about how people die, because I know that's what you definitely don't want spoiled for movies like this. That's the fun. Like, how are these people going to get? How violent they're going to be? So I don't want to get into those details yet. Maybe I'll jump into spoilers at the end here, but I'll just say that about the kills. You get a little more than part two, so it definitely has the most kills, and they're definitely all lengthy and violent with some off screen here and there. They're not all on screen. They're not all going to be in your face. Um, and yeah, there's some great moments with Art the Clown in this one. And you get a new pizzeria scene in this one, a new costume shop scene in this one, a couple of funny moments with Art the Clown. David Howard Thornton's performance is pretty consistent. He's still rocking the Art the Clown makeup and making the faces to perfect effect. Like he's just the faces he makes in this, and it's just hilarious. And yeah, you get some cameos. In part two, you got Felissa Rose, and with this one, I don't think it's spoiler. I mean, unless you live under a rock and you haven't been listening, but it's been announced long ago who was going to be in this in cameos, small roles like Tom Savini and Daniel Roebuck and Clint Howard and Jason Patrick. So we get even more this time. And so it's nice seeing them. And what else? I was surprised there wasn't more like outside. I was expecting there to be like snow, a lot of snow and kills out in the snow, because you would think that there's going to be like the trope of whenever there's a slasher or horror movie that's set in like winter, they always use that visual of blood on the snow, but not in this one. He In the trailer they show him making that blood angel, but that's not outside in the snow. But yeah, there's actually not everything's inside in this movie. So maybe they did that on purpose. They don't want to shoot a bunch outside and freeze their asses off. So I get that. I was expecting there though to be more outside Christmassy stuff happening outside, and maybe a sledding scene or something. But no, they didn't do that. But yeah, the Christmas atmosphere, like the lighting, the decorations, are in pretty much every single scene. And I always love that. So yeah, it just looks good, and Art the Clown is just as scary, or if not scarier than he was before. Like I just love a lot of the scenes with him in this, where he's just like in the attic that you see in the trailer, where he's got all the cobwebs on him. It does beg the question though, like why 5 years? Like, why did he? There's a 5 year time jump, so why was he just sitting in that chair for 5 years? Like in hibernation, just waiting for someone to accidentally like wake him up or something. Like what was he waiting for? And the director said that the only reason why this movie has a 5 year time jump is just because of Jonathan's, the actor who plays Jonathan. He grew a bunch. He got really tall, like the kid who played Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie remake. Why Rob Zombie had to like recast him in part two was because he got too big. But Damien didn't want to do that and recast the movie, so he had to make the movie jump 5 years. But now it creates this somewhat of a small issue with the story. It's like, oh, why is Art just sitting there for 5 years in this attic? But whatever, just gotta look past it. But speaking of Jonathan, he's in this movie not a whole lot. Like the scenes you see in the trailer, there's not much more than you see in the trailer with him in this movie. Like he's just got a few scenes here and there, and I just feel like he should have been in the movie more. So I'm a little disappointed in that. I wish he would have been in the movie more, have more scenes between him and Sienna. And but I liked the new family member they introduced here, the cousin Gabby, I think was her name. This like 12-year-old young cousin to Sienna, and their relationship was nice and cute. And then yeah, the third act is pretty wild. You get another great fight between Sienna and Art. And I'm trying to think of any like negatives I can say that aren't spoilers besides what I just said about Jonathan. Um, Not a whole lot. Well, here, part two raised a lot of questions. with about Sienna's father, this little pale girl, you know, why the evil entity took the form of this little pale girl specifically. What's the connection to, between Art the Clown and Sienna's dad? Why did he lure them to the Terrifier? What was going on with that like hell pit? Like, is there really like this portal to hell at the carnival? Like, um, so it's like I want answers to some of these questions, but I don't feel like we got any. Maybe I think we got like one question about the sinister, the little pale girl, or the evil entity that has brought Art back. We get some explanation about why Art's being used to go after Sienna, but it's like that's it. Like nothing about Sienna's father. Like I was expecting a little bit more answers, but instead we just get more questions and less answers. So that's a bit of a problem. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But besides that issue, I still love the movie. Really enjoyed it. It's a slasher movie for gore fans. It has plenty of it. Art the Clown is entertaining. It's brutal as hell. It's got great Christmas atmosphere. Just it's not perfect, but I still loved it. So I would give it, just like the first two movies, now a 4.5 out of 5. This is a franchise that's consistently amazing, but still getting a little better each time. And I look forward to the fourth one that's already been confirmed, and maybe even the fifth one. And so yeah, now do I want to get into spoilers, or do I just want to jump into my top 10 threes? I'm not sure if there's even anything worth spoiling about how the movie ends. Do I really need to talk about it? Not really. I think I should just jump into this list. I don't think I need to spoil this movie, even if you've already seen it and you're listening to this. So let's just jump into the top 10 part threes, and I won't talk about these for long because I've either reviewed them or talked about them at some point in different rankings or something. So here we go. Hatcher 3. Yeah, there's a lot of great part 3s, so maybe I should shout some honorable mentions that just missed the list before I really jump into this. These movies just missed the list. Believe it or not, Children of the Corn 3. That's easily the best sequel in that franchise. And Return of the Living Dead 3, The Conjuring 3, Stepfather 3. That movie doesn't get a lot of love, and not a lot of people have seen it, but the people who have seen it, it's got a pretty low rating. It's like in the 4s on IMDb. Same with Children of the Corn 3, but those are two underrated part 3s if you ask me. Check them out. Predators. Technically, that's the third Predator movie, but if you want to count Alien versus Predator, then I guess that would be part 3. But if we're not including the AVP movies, Predators is part 3 for that franchise, and it kicks ass. And Sleepaway Camp 3 is my last honorable mention. Now, here we go. Top 10. Number 10, Hatcher 3. Loved how they ended the story here. It was a great conclusion, but then they made more, and unfortunately, they didn't keep making more. Hopefully, we get a 5 and 6 to finish this new trilogy that Adam Green said that he had in his head. He said there's 2 more movies that he's planned out, but now it's been like 6 years since part. This is the longest break in between movies, so now I'm a little worried that's never going to happen. So he started something with Victor Crowley, part 4, and now it looks like he's not even going to finish it. So that saddens me. So maybe he should have just ended it here, because this, like I said, was a great conclusion to the trilogy, and tons of kills. So number 9, Exorcist 3, my favorite Exorcist movie. I like it more than the original. Some people might think that's blasphemy, but I don't care. Number 8, Friday the 13th Part 3. And I don't think I need to say anything else about it. You know it. Check out my review for the whole series. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I've gone back and forth between 1 and 3 being my favorite in this series, but now I prefer part 1 just because of the tone of it. This one, kind of like Terrifier 2, threw in some fantasy elements, like extra fantasy with the whole Wizard Master shit, and that stuff kind of turns me off. So there's some cheesy stuff in this movie that doesn't work for me, but the effects in this movie kick ass. Freddy's makeup, I think it's his best look, and it's got a lot of iconic moments in it. Number 6 is A Quiet Place Day 1. I did not expect this movie to be anywhere near as good as it was. And it's a prequel that actually is fantastic. I just said in, I think, my last episode, when I was talking about the prequel to Rosemary's Baby, that there's not a lot of great prequels out there, but this one is one of the best out there. And number, uh, whatever, 5, I think yeah, 5, Saw 3, my favorite Saw in the series. Check out that review. I reviewed the whole series, so find out why I think it's the best there. Number 4, Terrifier 3. I knew this was going to make the top 10 for sure. How high it would be, I didn't know. But here it is. Yeah, it's definitely top 5 worthy, in my opinion. I think it is definitely the best in the trilogy. And it's now it's definitely going to be a new Christmas annual like tradition. I'll watch this every December. With movies like Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Black Christmas. Number 3 is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Underrated sequel in that franchise. It's my favorite sequel in the franchise. I got 1, 3, and then like Halloween 4. 4 would be my favorite sequel. Besides this one, my favorite sequel that has Michael Myers in it. But this one, I just love it for the soundtrack, Tom Atkins, the wacky storyline, and it's very different in the ending. Love it. It's just incredible. And Child's Play 3 is my number 2. Super nostalgic. The top 2 here are nostalgic picks for sure, but they're also just amazing films to me. This one just has some of the best Chucky lines. It's like my favorite Chucky look in the series, and I like the new setting. I know that's kind of very divisive with fans. This one seems to be one of the most hated films besides Seed of Chucky in the series. I don't know why. Is it just because of the setting? I don't get it. I think it's amazing. It's pretty fucked up what he does in this movie. The opening's great, and the third act at the carnival. Love that kind of setting in a horror movie. And it delivers, man. I think it's highly rewatchable and doesn't get enough praise. Speaking of which, same thing with the next movie I'm about to talk about. Number 1, Final Destination 3. If you're familiar with my channel at all, you would see this coming a mile away. I just did a Final Destination 3 filming's location video. That's the only one in existence on YouTube. Shockingly, I know, right? There's one for part 1, there's one for part 2. I think there's like a couple of videos for 4 and 5, but it's like one location for each movie, so they're not even like good ones. But this was like every location possible that you could even visit. So it's the ultimate FD3 filming locations video that's now on YouTube, thanks to me. And the reason why I did it is because that's how much I freaking love this movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's super nostalgic. Came out when I was like 10 years old. Went to the theaters, scared the shit out of me. I was afraid to go to bed that night. Thought something was, death was after me and gonna drop something on my head when I was in bed or something. Like, because that's how these movies work. You never know where death's coming from. It's just something's gonna land on you and crush you. And then that just terrified me. And the soundtrack of this movie, the kills, some of the best kills. I mean, check out my review. For Christ's sakes, it's an hour long. That's how much I love this movie. I could talk about it all day. So, without a doubt, I knew this was my number 1. I'm sure you guys did too if you're familiar with my channel at all. FD3, easily number 1. It's the best part of 3 in my opinion, and it's underrated. I don't get why it's so disliked. Even the premonition is amazing. It's one of the best. I think I go back and forth between the roller coaster and the bridge collapse. I think the bridge collapse is just a little bit more epic, and the visual effects and CGI there are improved over part 3. I will admit some of the visual effects shots in this opening disaster aren't amazing, but I still love it. So yeah, there you go. That's my number 1. What is your guys' top 10 favorite part 3s? Let me know in the comments below. And what did you think about Terrifier 3? Do you think it's the best in the trilogy? And are you looking forward to part 4? Let me know. And I don't know what the next video will be. Maybe Speak No Evil or VHS Beyond. I saw that. So maybe I'll talk about that in the next video. So yeah, until then, goodbye.